Nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. I had a motion to approve the agenda. Michael, Harold, comments, questions, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I get a motion to receipt the minutes of January 21st, 2025. Harold, Michael, any questions on the minutes? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. No delegations. We have two matters. 7.1, this is in regards to the line-by-line budget review corporate services. Tricia, did you want to say anything, or did you want me to just ask if they have any questions?
Just asking if there's.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I guess I'll go first.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Tricia, just I guess historically, so when I look at the very first line that you highlighted, you talk about the fact that, the variance, 2024 to 2023. But if we go back far enough, we go back to the 2021 actuals, we had a significant number for salaries and it's decreased over the years. And I couldn't remember why. Have we reallocated staff members to different departments as a result of that, or?
So back in 2021, we discovered that one of the procurement positions was being charged there erroneously, so we fixed that.
Okay.
So,
There's always an answer, you just gotta ask the question, right? Because it just seemed like, quite frankly, we often see, departmental salaries increasing a little bit year over year, and that was such a different slope that I thought I'd ask the question.
yeah. And we also used to have Martin's position as well.
So second page. The second line, Homer's benefit. So this one, I just want to understand this because it kind of jumped out to me. So I see the explanation where it says higher than budgeted Homer's contribution, but it's a significant increase, right? And I think to myself, well, the salaries themselves haven't increased that greatly, but the contributions were up 80,000 or almost, 3 times what they were in 2023's actual. So I was curious about that.
The only, Mr. Mayor, the only thing that I can think of are two things. One is we started to allow part-times into the temporary part-times into the owners program. And then the supervisor, I think we got a supervisor position and then somebody from bylaw moved to the supervisor position. So his owners contributions would be a little bit more as well.
Thank you. The next line, the explanation is the miscoding of MTO charges for amps. So is that something that's going to be fixed, or is that why it's the variance is greater now because we've just come to realize that?
For you, Mr. It's my understanding that at the time we didn't have a line item for the coding, so that's why we just put it in there. It's from when we moved from courts to amps, and it's my understanding that it will be fixed. Finance is going to put a code.
And that's it for the moment. Councilor, if you guys have a
Harold, you have anything?
Sure. Scribbles from the weekend. I'm just trying to remember what. Okay. On the first page, under mobile plan charges, it's not a huge number. I was just curious as to why the declining trend in the mobile plans. It's from like 1479, 2006, and then $600.
So through you, Mr. Chair, in the past, we used to have mobile plans with a different carrier. And in and around that time, we did switch over to Rogers, and the plans were about half the price of the old plans. And now we're moving to a new contract, and that's even less expensive. They're going in the right direction for at least one thing.
Rogers really overcharged.
So that Rogers is.
Or so sorry, so the previous TELUS.
Got a new Doge department.
So I circled, geo. So under line 64046, under software. TNC support. So we didn't have anything in 22, and then that software support. 23. 15,256, and then it just on to 6,700. What exactly is that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna take a guess. I would, I think it would probably be our G-Techna software, and that's the software that we use. Huh?
It is
Now,
by law.
yeah, it is by law. So, with AMPS, with the AMPS program. And because that didn't really come into play until 2023 and 2024. There's more charges for that. Why the difference, I can find out, but I don't know why.
Just below that, a few lines, animal control for dog. So we had a projection of 48,000 dog tag revenues, and it's like forecast is 26,000. Guess we underestimated the number of people who wanted dog tags, or not even sure how staff goes about even forecasting dog tags.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So it is our best guess. We do encourage everybody to get dog tags, but not everybody does. I'm pretty sure we base it probably on the numbers from the year before. We may have wanted a bit more in 2024. We may have budgeted because of COVID and the assumption that a lot of people had dogs. And now slowly people are getting rid of their dogs. So we don't need that, they don't need tags anymore.
One under 56,200 court fines. So budget and forecast. Is it because the big difference there in terms of budget and forecast, 62,000 to 21,000? Is it because you have to add 56,200, line 56,200 and 56,201? Like a new line item was created, and that's why there's a.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, it's because this is when we move towards AMPS. So this line is the fines that we receive from the court, but because now less matters are going to the court, we're receiving less fines.
Yeah, so you
So
just
you-
have to add 56,200 and 201. That would be a combination of the reports and the amps.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, sure.
And in it's like page 5 or 6 under insurance fees or legal services. 64. Premiums would have a more kind of gradual upward facing trajectory. Then you see 21, 653 to 780. It drops down to 657. 50, for budget, or 851. It's kind of like up, down, up. Shouldn't it be more kind of like up?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the differences would be when we move to another insurer. So then we get a better rate, and so the insurance premiums decrease. insurance premiums are also based on the hard market or the soft market, the market, and it's also based on what our loss history is. So it could fluctuate annually or at least between contracts. And recently, we've had to renew our contracts almost on an annual basis as opposed to being in a set term because of, one, the hard market. We didn't want to be in a situation where we were always paying at a higher amount. And two, we're working on other things with the insurance premium, so we're trying not to lock ourselves in.
My next is just a comments under administrative fee revenue, 52,102. I looked at this, you see 48 and 21, 86, steady 87, and projected 90, and 20 last year, you only took in 31,000 in development agreement. So I guess it's kind of telling in terms of the state of real estate and development. My last observation was under next page. Under Integrity Commissioner, 64,080. So each year it goes up, and we projected 17,250, close 16,000. Any kind of context in terms of we pretty well doubled from last year? And again, how do you even budget for Integrity Commissioner? That's just kind of.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So what I think happened between 2023 and 2024 is that the Integrity Commissioner received more power to do reports and to do other investigations. How do we assess it? I would say, well, Mike might have a very good way of assessing it. It's partially like every budget item, a best guess, but then also compared to what other municipalities are experiencing versus the trend that he's seeing within what ours is doing.
We should start. We can have a motion to limit things that go to Integrity Commission, have a filters. Getting up there. So.
Thank you. All right.
Counselor, would you have anything else to add?
Sure.
Go ahead, second time.
Thank you.
Only 5 minutes, go ahead.
I've just picked up on that though, on the Integrity Commissioner one, just to make, I did make a note, because I've seen the increase in cost. But, and this is probably more for Devil, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we were supposed to get a report on an annual basis or something like that from the Integrity Commissioner in terms of whatever the I guess initiatives or complaints were received and stuff, but I haven't seen it in a while.
No, it was our last year.
Did we?
Yep.
But it,
I think
I
it's
guess-
just once a year.
so I guess it's for 2024, it's coming.
It's on his timing, I would say. It's not necessarily ours, right?
I think he produces it.
He
yeah.
produces the report, not us.
Because I just want to be curious to see whether the report reflects what you see here in terms of the rising costs, which would seem to indicate more complaints, or he's spending more time dealing with issues. So it just sort of jogged my memory about previous ones. The other one I have is really about the election. Contribution to reserves, so it's
Oh, no, maybe not. That's what just say that.
Pardon?
The third, one, right after bylaw.
page 3. Yeah, so where's this contract? So I'm just curious because it says here, you know, obviously in 2022 we had expenses because of an election. In 2023, the actual was a contribution to the reserves. Are we not making a contribution to the reserves in 2024? Because I don't see anything forecasted.
Is that the election?
No, 2022 was the election.
So because I thought every year we make a contribution to the reserves and then it gets
Unfortunately.
obviously used up sort of thing, right? So I just didn't see it for 2024 in the forecast or in the budget. So,
Oh, might be on a different line. You see, Laura says on a different line.
oh, because in 2023, well, because there's something on this sheet for 2023, but not 2024.
Look further down the page.
There's a line called transfers to reserve, the about 3 down from contracts.
Yeah.
That's where the contribution to reserve is done.
So if the 105,000 on line 45003 is the contribution to reserves, then just walk back to 2023 where it would have said 120,000 is the transfer to reserves, but yet we have, what's the 25,362 charge then?
So in 2023 was. So like a refund. Isn't there a contested charge? On the
You can always come back.
Yeah, I think. You asked Mike what it was.
Is it a negative?
Is it negative?
It's a
I think
negative.
it was something to do.
Didn't somebody's campaign produce a surplus that had to be turned in?
My campaign had a surplus of $10,000. And that goes to,
Would that
back to the
That
community,
would show up in 20.
the corporation.
be 23? So this is 25,000. So anyway, so
Well, I'm just saying that's 10, and then there might
could
be,
be what that is.
Yeah.
That would be a negative on the election expense.
Didn't we file a case of John Walker Blue with that? Came back.
you're such a joker.
Okay,
Actually, we do.
okay.
The accrual that was done at the end of 2022 was too high. So, and it's the net amount.
Those are the only questions I have, other than the one about insurance. And, I think that, I guess if anything on here is a risk, it's the escalating cost with regards to insurance. And, certainly do what we can to kind of, I guess, blunt it, but is there any other strategies that we can, sort of look to or incorporate? Because I really don't think insurance costs are going the other way at any time soon. I think it rise certainly is a risk for us.
So there's a few things. So my first comment, we're doing our best to do something called subrogating claims. So every time we do get a claim, if we pay out, or even if the insurance company pays out, especially if it's something against town property, we do try to go back and get it from the appropriate party. The second piece is the York Region is looking to do an insurance pool. It's something that it's been in the works for 2 to 3 years maybe now, and we're finalizing all the details. We intend to come back to council with that information to see what that looks like and what it could mean for our potential future insurance costs.
Well, that's good. It's looking at a strategy to try and kind of mitigate some of this stuff. I guess that would be all 9 municipalities in York Region.
Only those who opt in.
It could be
The
up to.
hope that it'd be all 9?
No, because we're not
And
even,
including the region if all.
Oh, that's true, yeah, yeah,
It depends on who decides to opt.
I can tell you it's unlikely that they'll have all 10 in the conversations at the CAO table. But there's significant interest and we're just trying to prove, what the value is to each municipality, because each municipality attacks insurance a little differently.
Yeah.
So step one is figuring out if we can all get on the same plane, because otherwise it's hard to compare current costs to future costs if you're changing the policy as well as doing the pooling. So it's been on the treasurers and insurance people's agendas for a couple of years. And it's only come to the CEO in about the last 6 months. And we've had 2 discussions at the regional at the regional CAOs meeting. And it's, I think, the lion's share of the agenda at the end of March. Get another update.
So that's for you. Fair. I mean, that kind of lines up with my last kind of comment really is that it seems to me that services and consultants line 64,000, right? Is really where the biggest variations occur throughout this. And so again, going back to, N6 initiatives, like we continue to look to ways to kind of work with the other municipalities to find ways to pool resources or, to approach it as a collective, try and mitigate some of these costs.
Harold, anything else? Someone want to move the recommendation? Michael, second Harold, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Thank you. Next item is a memorandum regarding one JIB update, transition to outsource chief investment officer. You wanna give it? Okay.
So things there, so there's a few changes that are happening in the zoning board, and the biggest changes are looking to enforce and outsource chief investment officer, which is H&M, which is part of the thing. So what will happen is, the JIB will get more of the expertise and the wider variety of funds that can be invested in. And also create some additional opportunities for investments as well, outside of the typical, fund investments. So right now, we have a very limited number of funds under the JIP, which is managed by the investment officer there. I think about 5 funds, whereas this will expand it up to about 35 funds across the board. The other thing it does is it opens up an opportunity for alternative investments. And if we wanted to, which are basically investments in things like infrastructure. So these are much less liquid. So it's harder to get into, but it's also harder to get your money out of as well. So you have to have some regulatory jump if you wanted to put it on sale. So if we wanted to move forward with those types of investments, we'd actually have to include that within our investment policy statement. Or we can decide to hold off at this point in time. We can always opt in at a future date. So that's just to give you a bit of an update as to what's happening. We do plan on bringing forward the updated investment policy statement soon. And we just need to decide at that point if we do want to explore these alternatives. I don't know, like you don't have to.
Mr. Mayor, I guess my only one question really is, that does this transition or change bring with it increased cost or fee? Because I mean, whatever the administration portfolio costs are, it comes out of the proceeds and then gets netted back to those for the mutual fund, there's a management fee or whatever. So I'm just curious whether or not this is lateral or considered an increase in cost.
Through Mr. Chair, so the fees are expected to either be the same or lower. We actually did have a small rebate in our fees at the end of last year because our total investment out of the budget exceeded 50 million. So once you get to different thresholds, there's lower fees.
So, but transitioning to the outsource.
This should not be any additional.
Great. Thanks.
Harold?
For you, Mr. Mayor, so in terms of alternative investments,
Excuse me.
you know, what it's gonna look like? Is it gonna be one fund that's gonna hold infrastructure, private equity investments where they invest in a company with an exit strategy of 5-7 years? Are they gonna subcategorize that so you can go into more like tactical type of alternative, or is it gonna be just lump sum?
So through Mr. Chair, the alternative investments would not be based on the market. They would not be open for sale on the market, be the more direct in infrastructure type investments. So that's the way that they explained it to us. So that being the case, it makes it a little bit more challenging as to when you can get into them, but also when to get out. So the funds do become less liquid, but there's opportunity for higher returns.
So in terms of my perspective, in terms of whether to go into the alternative class, I know just given, I don't think we're gonna have any reserve funds that's gonna sit there for 5, 7, 10 years. We'll probably need them sometime. So my choice would be not to go in there. I mean, alternative asset class, long-term, returns about 10 to 12%, which is pretty similar to regular total return of the equity class. It's just the timing of them will be different hence the diversification, but I don't think, my perspective is not to go into that because of the lock-in periods that will likely be required. And I guess with that, there's no, we don't know the redemption frequency yet for that category.
Through Mr. Chair, so if we were to actually invest in alternative investments and we wanted to pull our funds out, we need more significant lead time because they would have to find another investor that's willing to go into it. And we can always take a wait and see approach to how this works with other members of the JIB at this point, because one of the, a lot of the newer members, they're going straight into the outsourced CIO model. And one of the bigger ones that recently joined is Durham. They brought a significant amount of funds into the JIB, which helps contribute to also lowering the fees overall. The fees down.
For you. So now that we have an outside CIO, who did the I guess it's the internal CIO. What's that team or the internal CIO going to be doing now that he or she has capacity now? Are we going to be charged less by the internal CIO or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so what's happened since we joined the JIB is there's a lot more municipalities and a lot more funds come into the joint investment board. So that's essentially spread the costs, and it's gotten to the point now where managing all of that internally is much more challenging. There's more opportunities, more funds that are available to invest in. So the investment officer, he's going to be doing a lot of oversight of what's being done by PH&N. So to make sure it actually meets our objectives overall for our investment policy statements.
So essentially, because of the increased assets and clientele, she's gonna have a lot more work to fill up that gap. That's good. So normally when you have a new investment manager, they like to bring in their own some location, under the house of RBC. I would imagine RBC is going to be wanting to sell some of their internal stuff, proprietary stuff as well. So what's going to happen to the 5 Guardian funds then? Are we still allowed to hold them, or do we have to redeem them and switch them all over to PH&N? I would imagine there's going to be costs. Want to redeem those 5 Guardian funds?
Through Mr. Chair, you're speaking with the. Let's see, the funds that are under the JIB right now, the 5 funds there. So they are going to be wound down and they're going to be transitioned in, the funds are going to be transitioned into PH&N. So we'll see the earnings that we've earned on those and recognize those this year as we transition them over.
I guess maybe a question you can ask one JIB, the CIO, is be forced to sell something at a loss because we have to kind of cash out, give the funds to the new CIO.
The one thing they're trying to do is with the funds that they're moving to is make sure that they're moving them across to something with a very similar risk profile. So the profile of the funds are going to be similar. So it's going to be whatever it's sold at on that date when it moves over, but we're not expecting it to be like it's the market. So there could be changes and fluctuations, but overall the composition will be similar, but it's more diverse.
And for you, my last question is, what was do you know what the RFP process was for the CIO, and why wasn't Guardian retained? I mean, PH&N, they have a good track history, they have a long tradition. But just in terms of the process there, do you know how that worked?
Mr. Chair, I'd have to gather the information for you, but I know it was MFOA, the Municipal Finance Officers Association, that ran the competition for selection. So it was done through them, and I'd have to gather any additional information on how the selection.
Thank you.
Want to move the recommendation? Michael, second by Harold. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. New business? Mike? Harold? Motion to adjourn. Harold, Michael, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Linda.